I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order on Friday, August 15th, 2025 at 11 a.m. Roll call. Berto here.
Hausen here. Sorry. Hausen here.
Laskowitz here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Hausen,
Second.
second by Laskowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Approved meeting minutes from July 28th, 25. I would like to make a couple additions. On page 2, that paragraph starting on 42, when Mike was commenting, it stated that he noted that the tax increase had been intended to raise about $400,000 in revenue based on advice from financial experts who believed it was necessary to keep the village financially whole. I question if that's true, because they usually do not tell us whether or not we should raise taxes or not. So I don't want to remove it, but I would just.
You could be right about that. I just
Yeah,
know that we
I don't
raise
think so.
taxes at the 11th hour. I'll say it any way you want.
So it can stay. I just want to add,
I don't recall that. Financially whole is not.
That's not
A
good. That
term.
wasn't, I don't know that I
Yeah.
used that language exactly.
and then it's also on the next page, page 3, line 6. Laskowitz noted that the financial expert from Baird had advised increasing taxes because of an anticipated negative impact from the TIDs. I question whether Baird gave us.
Well, that was a quote I got off of one of the board meetings that Adam presented at. But if I don't have it right, I'm okay with a tweak to that.
We can leave it just as long as you said it,
Yep.
but I question the validity of the
Okay.
validity of it. That's all,
Okay.
so it can stay. Page 4. Okay, line 19. Additional funds had been transferred to balance this. Could we be a little more specific, Vlad, to balance it from the general fund? Would that be appropriate, from general fund reserves?
Yeah, that would seem appropriate.
I mean, just to clarify where it came
So
from.
this I have a little bit of an issue with, because I was going to make a comment on 31-2. If you read the presented report by the auditor to the board on page 15, it basically identifies that our excess of revenues over expenses for the end of 24, which would be the beginning of 25, was 557,224.
Page 15 of the audit?
Correct.
Okay, I have that right here.
And then other financing sources, which include transfers in and transfers out, actually added 147,000. So the net change in fund balance was a positive 704,397. So at the end of the year, we were in the positive 704,397.
That's the variance between.
Correct. Between the actual and the budget. The positive variance of actual versus budget.
Correct, but that's not the actual number. The actual number is going to be 521, 820.
Yeah, you get that.
Where does that number come from? I'm not reading it on the audit report.
That, like, as we talked, that number consists of additional $150,000 transfer.
I'm reading that. Isn't that the 147, 173, which was a transfer in? On page 15 of the audit report.
Yeah, they do not break that report down the way it's in our budget. Actual, but the numbers.
I don't want to get into a big debate here. My only point is that the auditor's report says that we ended the year with a favorable variance. That's my point.
Correct.
$557,000 revenue over expenditures. And after transfers in and transfers out, it was a little more.
So Mike, that's 704,397 and 521,820. We can follow those numbers and we can see them on that 2024 actual to budget report that was presented in one of the finance and meetings. So 704,397, that's the variance, but the actual number of surplus is 521,820.
Yes, I agree completely.
And you asking what that number is consist of?
No, I'm just making the statement that the auditor's report shows that we had a positive variance to the budget at the end of 24, and that we were in the positive, a net of 557. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
And that was all I was saying in the meeting. I'm referencing the audit report. So I think the language should be tweaked, and I don't think you were disputing what the audit report said or says.
Page 6, starting new sentence on 22, line 22. Berto noted that every member should bring their computer with all the documentation provided for the meeting. And that's all that I had. Did anybody else have anything else?
Well, the only point is, I think the board members have village provided computers, correct? The citizen members do not. So I use an iPad, and my comment was, if we're working off the packet, we ought to work off the packet. If we're going to work off another document, just let us know. We'll print those out and bring them also.
Louise?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Motion by Laskowitz, second by Hausen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I would like to skip down to 6B, the Wheeler report on page 88. We have a quorum. And does anybody, Louise,
I have no objection.
have you looked at?
Yeah, I've looked at a few. My only, this is not an objection, it's just a procedural or a process that we should probably talk about if we subscribe. And I think it's a good idea to subscribe. And then just as a reminder, or because to me, the administrator has some responsibility here, but has a heavy load, right? But then also committee chairs, in particular plan, finance, parks, everybody knows who that is, or utilities,
Right.
you know, it has a heavy load. So do we need a process in place that, you know, administrator looks at it and says, take a look at this, be sure you take a look, you know, or I don't know how that works, just so that there's some efficiencies in reviewing this or something, because, you know, there could be a lot of information there, but hopefully, I don't know how often all these big changes come up, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I suppose it depends on our legislature, but,
So I think you're trying to make sure that the proper people are reviewing it.
because I mean,
notating it
I've been looking
somewhere.
at it, it comes a lot.
Yeah,
It's frequent. You know, there's no way that, I mean, I don't think, I should say, that somebody's going to keep looking at it every time it's issued. You're gonna go back and look at 6 or 7 issues at a time and then scroll through. And so maybe we talk about the most efficient way to do that or something, So you don't have two different sets of eyes looking at the same thing all the time and finding the same thing all day. I don't know. I just don't know. And if Vlad is a set of eyes, or I don't know if that's even efficient to do that, but it's something to think about.
Okay. So maybe we
It's
could
good
talk about
information,
that.
I mean, we don't use it. If there's another community that uses it, has found a good way to use it or how to use it, it'd be really nice if they had an executive summary. They don't. So, but maybe that's the way to,
So maybe we could talk about that process
Yeah.
at the board level.
at the board level or something, because if committee chairs are gonna have this as a responsibility, which is worthy, it's important. And it could be multiple committees, right, that would be affected, and ultimately the board.
Right.
Then, we can talk about how to do that, I think. Just how to efficiently manage it, because it's another task.
And it's a big task.
It is.
So this is, you're asking us to approve, I think, a $1,600
Yeah, it's a $1,600
annual expense
Yeah, it's a
for a
subscription.
tool that the administrative staff would use to understand legislative stage
Yeah.
changes at the state level.
Yeah.
And it would be an aid to them in understanding the legality of our ordinances. And it won't
And
be,
what we have
and
to change.
What
it
we're
won't be
missing,
perfect,
What
but
we update, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I support getting the staff the tools they need to do the
Okay.
job. It's not that much money.
Second,
Okay, motion by Laskowitz to recommend to the village board, second by Hausen.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Then on page 89, we have the CPI, just I think as a FYI.
that was to back up the 3% to keep the step in place. And it does, we thought it would be 2.7. I mean, it doesn't look as, if you pull that number, some of those numbers out, it's not as rosy as you would think, but it's what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
PPI came out today, not so good, but doesn't affect this. So I don't see, as chair of personnel, I wouldn't see it.
Anything changing.
Step, no.
And then on page 90, the administrators report on the propane that they will look for
Yeah.
next year. I think this contract period's already over for most propane companies.
Yeah.
So that will be in the tickler file for next
So my
year.
question is, we never had a contract with Farrell, right? We don't contract in advance for a price.
To be honest, that
Does
we
Farrell,
never done it like that.
I wonder if Farrell gives contracts?
I
Do they?
actually started looking into that, and I've been in contact with Lakes, Farrell, Gasco,
Yeah,
and
Co-op.
and Co-op, yep. So I'm waiting to hear back on them, because I'm
Okay.
going through the,
I can tell you what we got for Lakes. I don't have it committed to memory, but we just signed up for our annual one with Lakes.
yeah, I mean, it varies a lot.
Does it?
Unbelievable, yeah. So what I've
Company to
asked,
company it does?
oh, yeah, it's crazy. So like, this commercial for Gasco, it was $1.45. But Farrell currently is $1.90.
And,
Right,
and the current
so-
spot price at the co-op as of yesterday was 171.
Yeah, but we
You're
sign
right.
up for the year.
Well, you sign up
We
for a
lock
cap.
up, I know, we lock in a price, but
Right.
is it based on whether you lease or own your tank?
Typically, you own the tank, especially if it's underground or.
We
whatever.
don't.
No, that's not true.
No?
We do
No.
because they're underground. If they're
Yeah,
above
we do
ground,
not
they're
own ours.
typically leased, yeah.
We've owned and not owned, but we
Your
bought the
old house,
house
it was
and
probably
we
so old.
leased
in
it.
it, right?
We don't own it.
Yeah, I own mine and I get a 10 cent a gallon discount,
It's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
but mine's also underground.
Mine's not, ours is not.
What I'd like to do is, if, I don't know, process for this to happen, but I would like to reach out on the village's behalf to see what we can get as a rate, but I would need to tie everything together as far as,
Yeah,
the
sure.
different areas, and I'm not sure where to get that information, but
Vlad would have
I mean, I
that.
don't know how many tanks we got, it's gotta be a
yeah,
lot.
tanks, gallons, everything like that, because I've already
Yeah.
started the conversation with those companies, so.
Okay,
Excellent.
that would be great. Thank you, Andy. Okay, all right, so then we will scroll back up. So then we will go back to 6A, review draft budget. So I think Vlad did an awesome job with what's in the packet, a lot of really good information, background.
With that,
with Adam.
pretty much Adam worked through it.
So what does anybody have to say?
I thought this was extremely well done. I think the strategy to strike a target for the village budget at 2.4 makes sense, and it appears to be doable when you look at the run rates. Obviously, things could change. We're only in August. I think it was good work that Adam did with the input from the state, helping us to understand much closer, we hope, than it has been in the past, the TID implications on the aggregate budget after the operational expense. I would say that, I mean, I got 10 questions in here, but they're not questions I can't ask Vlad or somebody outside this meeting. But what I would say is that the thing we'll have to think about that I can't tell from this is, you know, how will this impact 27, or will it have an impact on 27? It seems as though we're managing this pretty consistently with the way we have in the past. Our reserves are in good standing after the budget is implemented, assuming that we execute consistent with the plan. So I mean, I'll go through this any way you want, but I thought it was very well done also. I could see your hands all over it, Denise, which I think is excellent.
One thing to add, after talking with Adam and knowing what we know right now, we always have to count for that corrections, be on a very cautious side.
Yeah.
To make sure assessors have proper information.
Right.
Because as
it was a big, in 20, that previous error by the assessor was significant.
Yeah, once they are saying a magnitude of that level, that's just like a disaster. You know, they do not use those words lightly. Once they say magnitude of that level, buckle up.
Are you satisfied with the state's responses to why we saw significant changes in the TIDs?
That's pretty much what Adam and Amber concluded back in like last year and in January. Yes, yeah, because that's very transparent reply.
Okay.
So now everyone knows what happened.
Okay. So you asked a question you already knew the answer to, and you got the answer that you wanted. Okay,
yeah,
I just wanted to be sure that, okay.
I think it was good to get the answer in writing the way you did.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
So what are your 10 questions, Mike?
I mean,
Because,
Yeah,
you know, I
okay.
understand your comment that, you know, you could have them
I-
ask an
I mean,
answer,
the-
but we
yeah.
have to work together as a group because somebody else may have
I
a
understand.
similar question or,
I mean, if we look at the detail, I think on page 26, I understand that we have a little bit of an issue with employment issues, and we have kind of a high number in the forecast for unworked wages, but I don't think I need to go into any detail there. I think I get it.
He's looking on 26. The account number is 51410, and
Yes, that's
that's the
Yeah.
114.
Yeah, I don't need to get into it.
Okay.
I think on page 34, a suggestion I would make in the future for where we have account changes that are substantial in the budget, and I get it because the numbers support it, but I think we could simplify the presentation on page 34, is where the, for government, general government under services, operating, maintenance, and non-operating expenses, we see that the total lines between the 25 budget is 683 and the proposed budget in 26 is 1155. Historically, what I've seen done in cases like this is a bridge chart summary of change. where basically you identify the variance and then identify the dollar impact of each of the changes. So it's easy for the committee and the board to understand what's changing. You can answer a lot of questions that way without having to dive into all the detail. But that's just a suggestion for the future. But I was able to make my numbers foot when I look back. The same would probably be true on page 56 of the packet under debt service fund. When we look at the unusual negative number year to date of negative 3,634 for debt service, with a budget of $22,000 in 25 and only a budget of $1,883 next year. I believe that's because primarily the unspent broadband funds, if I understood things correctly. I'm not sure what the other 300,000 was for. But again, I think notations right in the summary reports describing those significant variances make it a little easier to catch what's going on.
I can answer about 300,000.
Please.
That was the principal broadband payment.
Got it. Makes sense.
For some reason, I don't want to say it's what was not budgeted in, but we had different payout schedule, and it changed over there.
So I don't remember which page this was on, so forgive me, maybe you can help me find it before I just go to my last couple. But at the last meeting, and you addressed it in the packet, so I don't want to get into too much detail. Vlad, you explained that you were concerned about the size of the CIP reserve fund, and we're suggesting that we need to audit it.
Yeah.
If I read the packet right, you and Adam discovered Tasha's spreadsheet, which had the detail substantiating the value and the reserve account amounts. And we're you feel more confident. However, you're still suggesting we should audit this down the road, but you're more confident in the integrity of that account.
To some extent.
Okay.
Not fully. So what needs to happen? Those spreadsheets will have to be aligned with auditors' reports.
Okay, I agree.
That's one thing. Plus, it needs to align with our books too. So that triangle for me, unavoidable. So we just did that with cash flow book. So
Yeah.
it was aligned with banks, books, and audit requirements. So it needs to happen the same thing with capital reserves. And Adam and I we looked into, and we can't really align those yet. So Denise, I did mention it to you. So going forward, I don't know how long it's gonna take. It might take an extra few months,
Do
6 months.
you have the confidence that we're close enough that we can build a 26 budget without significant risk? And I didn't say zero risk, but without significant risk of having a material error?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, one of the things we're actually doing, because we've seen on Barrett's side, we've seen a lot more municipalities need like almost like a CPA to come in and do kind of these audit type activities. So we actually have just brought in, she's going to be starting with us in a couple of weeks. We have a CPA now that is going to be joining our side of the kind of consulting side and review. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be working with her and Vlad on is now that we have found kind of Tasha's history, is kind of almost having our new person go back and start almost in 2021 and look at, you know, each of the spreadsheets that kind of Tasha was looking at and try to balance them out to the audit, because that was actually her background. She used to be an auditor with Kerber Rose. So we feel very, you know, blessed that we're going to have another individual that can kind of get into the weeds and have a better understanding from the auditing side, to kind of help you guys feel more comfortable. But I know, Vlad, when we looked at it, you know, there was a little bit of a variance, but it wasn't a, you know, something that would be considered catastrophic. It's just trying to true it up and make sure that we can, you know, when we present it to you, Vlad feels comfortable and you as the committee and obviously as the board feel comfortable and agreeing that that number is what you're going with going forward.
Tasha, when Tasha was with us, finance always did receive that documentation. And so when I had met with Lad a couple of weeks ago after our last meeting, I told him it's on the computer somewhere. I don't know what it's called. Maybe you can call Tasha, maybe you can just find it. Now, granted, it would have to be updated, since she had left, and obviously, the audit's a really good idea. We had had those conversations already. So I think in the future, now that we have that document, now that we're going to have it audited, that will be part of this committee's packet, every year moving
That's
forward. Because because there were some things in the CIP, if you remember in the memo or description or something that said, we're putting $95,000 away annually, but then we didn't have the spreadsheet
Right.
to show that.
Yeah.
So did that really happen, or
Yeah.
were we done doing that, or
Right.
whatever?
And that's
So
another-
these were this is like her workbook.
Yes. To share with
Yeah,
us, so we
sure.
knew
No, I get it,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm fine.
and then
I'm fine with that. I'm glad you found it. I'm sure that was reassuring, and I'm glad Adams looked at it.
Yeah, and when I mentioned to Adam, like going forward, we need something more simple, more easier to understand, more easier to
Yep.
work with. And not for like a couple of years, like for 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
like that. So it's
I
basically-
think Denise is spot on, that this committee should be looking at the reserve accounts, what they're identified for, are they restricted or unrestricted? We should know that.
That's what we're gonna work towards.
So I'm almost done, just a couple more. Adam, you might want to chime in on this one. This is where I think bridge charts or variance descriptions are good. If we look at the debt service fund, we had this big jump in 24.
Mike, what?
I'm
page
sorry,
are you on?
page 57, my
Thank
apologies.
you.
Page 57, center of the page. When we look at the debt service numbers, we've got 5.6 million at the end of 24. We budgeted 118 this year. We're showing halfway through the year that we're at 4.5 million, and we're budgeting next year 1 million. As I followed the transactions, I think I get that.
Sure.
But again, I think that's where a bridge chart describing the variances would be helpful for the readers, for the citizens, for the board. Adam, does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, definitely. I can work with, we can work with Vlad and obviously Justin, who does more of the debt side, to get you guys kind of almost like a year-to-year budget versus actual kind of highlighted key points.
just the major differences so
Yep.
that it's easily explained.
Sure, certainly.
Again, it looks like in TIF 1, we've kind of plugged the numbers, and it's got Adam's name next to it. We've plugged 26 with the 25 number. Under page 6, thank you. Page 63 in the packet, beginning balance of the TIF 1 property tax increment. The 25 budget is 924. It looks like we plugged 26 at the same number. It says not updated yet, but we do have the preliminary included in the packet, and I'm assuming we ran this budget using the 924 and still held the mill rate where it's at. Is that accurate, Adam?
So yeah, that's going to need to get updated now that the actual equalized TID values got finalized this morning by the Department of Revenue. So now what we'll be doing is I'll be going in there and working with Vlad on updating all of those numbers, but we use so that number is going to change.
How much? Is it
yes.
material?
If the goal, obviously, for the finance committee and the village is to reduce the, finalized mill rate, then you will be receiving less increment for the TIDs. So that number will drop.
Plus the adjustment for that correction.
From the preliminary that we had a week ago, it changed that much, huh?
It's
No, so that number was essentially Vlad just plugged that in, and that's where he's saying it's not updated yet. He just kept the same number from
That wasn't the-
2025.
Okay,
That's not the finalized number that's going to go in there. So that's why it says they're not updated yet. He just put that in there basically as a placeholder.
all right. I guess I can't, I gotta wait and see the number.
Adam, what is the new number that was finalized this morning?
So it did match what we kind of had in the staff note. So what is anticipated, pull up the performa quick here.
That would be okay.
So,
This is TIF one, right?
so yeah, I guess the way to explain it is if you go back to page, where is that? If you go to page 10 of your packet,
Yep.
this is where on the top there, you can see that year 2025, when we're using the tax increment worksheet, this is where it's going to be an estimate. So as you can see there in 2024, the village's portion of the taxes that went into the TID was at $802,268. If the goal is to kind of drop that finalized mill rate to get back to where you were, you can see there the TID portion then from the village is estimated at about 553. So that's about a $300,000 difference in the village portion. Now, the one thing you're not going to know is what's going to happen to the other taxing jurisdictions. So that's why that number is always going to be in your budget, somewhat of an estimate, unless we know, before you as a village approve your budget, if all of the other taxing jurisdictions have finalized their rates, then we can give you a 100% straight answer of what that increment's going to be. But otherwise, the only portion we can truly kind of get to some finite number of a good estimation is the village portion. So on the performance we run, what we do is we try to keep that tax rate somewhat flat to get an estimate of what we think the total tax increment is going to be. So as we kind of move forward here and get closer to October, our hope is that we'll be able to give you a better true estimate of what that TID number is going to be.
Thank you, Adam, but let me ask a question. So
Yeah,
essentially the 553 is a plug.
it's that is the number you basically have control over from the village. The other taxing jurisdictions, we don't know. So that $900,000 number that is being plugged into the budget is taking into account all of the taxes coming in from all of the taxing jurisdictions, and then dispersing that increment between TID 1 and TID 2 based on the equalized value.
In your experience, what do you think the range of variance is?
So within the last couple of years, we have seen that most of the finalized tax rates have gone down, but that I would say within the last year, we've kind of see it stabilize, and now we see it's either staying very similar to what it was the previous year, or we're starting to see slight increases due to kind of school district referendums, and just everybody keeping their rates somewhat flat.
So the range is probably the difference between that 802 and the 553?
For the village portion, yeah, I mean, you're looking at essentially if this is what you would try to finalize, essentially you're going to have $300,000 less in tax collection going to the total TIF districts from the village portion.
And you're saying that we should have finals by early October?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, if right around then is when everybody is kind of doing their, budgets and information. I mean, for sure, Vlad will have all that information when he submits the final mill rate worksheet, because they have to give all that information to Vlad. So at that point, he'll know when he is putting those numbers in before he submits, he'll have a good understanding if it's off or if it's not, or if it's, very similar.
So my suggestion would be that when we get that number, it's also the point in time where we only have a month and a half left in the calendar year to review our spending forecast for the full year, and then netting the two to understand if there's risk or opportunity there. Does that make sense, Vlad?
It does.
Well, we have to have it adopted into the county so they can get the tax bills out, so we don't even
That's
have
too
that
late.
much
We don't
time.
have that much time. But we don't get the number until,
Right,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
always.
Yeah, this is the hard thing that every municipality deals with is, the county wants to get those tax bills out. So like last year, your county essentially wanted the information before Thanksgiving so they could have the tax bills submitted and finalized. The statutory deadline essentially is you have to have tax bills out by, you have to have everything finalized into the state by December 15th is usually the deadline that they make. Most of your other taxing jurisdictions it's very rare that they kind of hit up that deadline, but we do have a couple of municipalities even that they'll go into the first week or second week of December before they actually final approve their budget.
so I guess this is back to the committee or to Denise. While this will be a variable we may not be able to accurately forecast, we can control it based on the tax increment that the village determines. On top of that, as late as possible, we could do an update to the department expense forecast to see if there's any material variance that would allow us to maybe even tweak down expense budgets in 26 to help us cover any incremental TIF related costs that we might have if we have incremental. Maybe it'll be favorable. I mean, that's the only thing I would say. We can't just be victims of this. The question is, how do we take action to kind of control it? That's a suggestion. So, okay. Thanks, Adam.
Sure.
We're gonna stick with me. I think I just have. TIF 1 was the same thing, Adam, but it's smaller. This one might have to be outside of this, but I was kind of surprised in the enterprise fund for the water department on slide 68 of the packet that we include $260,000 for a development that's not yet approved. It looks like there's a name there. I cannot. Devley, Philly, and patio, unless that's something we plan independent of the development there.
I believe it's in the CIP. So we're planning on it.
Okay,
But the money does not have to, will not be expended, obviously, if it is not
If it's not-
approved or doesn't
Okay.
move forward.
okay.
But it's also for utilities.
Right.
Was that the 100, what's the 110?
Does that impact the water aquatic center? Would that make it necessary? It doesn't matter. I got it. That was it, Denise. Thank you for the time.
Please? Yeah, I had a couple. All right. So for room tax flat, I'm sorry, I'm on page 22.
Thank you.
And I'm in, account 41210, which is the fifth one, down in general fund. So this is room tax, revenue. So flat, it looks like, am I right that we're budgeting about $65,000 in room tax? Does that sound right?
Correct.
It could be a little aggressive. I think it's up, if we are gonna actually collect 57.6, which is probably about right for 2025, I kind of think we'll be flat.
So it's just, again, it's just a placeholder.
Okay.
The way it's pretty much paying back to general fund, whatever the municipal reimbursement amount.
Mhm.
So it's a guess. So
Okay.
this year, the municipal reimbursement amount was $65,000.
Sorry, this is the municipal reimbursement fund. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
So
This is actual room tax.
The-
I was confusing it with actual room tax. which will
There's
be-
the room, a part of the room tax that we can redirect in this revenue to cover municipal reimbursement.
Right.
So it kind of washes,
Yes,
is what
it
you're
washes.
Yeah, I
saying.
understand.
That's
So
what
if the numbers in both places, the same numbers in both places.
Okay, so my other question is room tax, actual room tax that we get from the tourism zone. Where is that in this budget?
It used to
It's
go
in
into the
something
debt,
else,
debt
right?
service.
Oh, it's in debt service
So this
Mhm.
year.
for revenue?
Yes.
Yeah, historically you've budgeted anywhere between about 400,000 and 500,000 that goes into the debt service to essentially offset what you otherwise then would have to be levying.
Okay,
And part of that, we're grabbing for the municipal reimbursement.
right, I get that, I get that.
Adam, is that proper accounting? Why would it not show up in one of the revenue categories?
So it does show up as a revenue on the in the debt service fund.
I see.
Because I think it's
It's just not broken out, that's what I was,
As you know, the government, the GASB accounting, it's a fund-based accounting. So it's just pretty much,
okay. So I'm not, but we do budget for a room tax within that category, right? There's a
Within
separate line item within
debt
that
service.
category within debt service, there's a separate line item.
Yes.
for room tax.
there's a separate line item that historically has been about 400,000 to 500,000, and that's one of the, I guess, proposed, conversation points for obviously the commission and the village is we're looking, essentially what's being proposed is because the TIDs are finally, because TID 1 has finally gotten to a position where it has a positive cash balance and can start making repayments. The decision has been for this year that the TID is going to be the one that essentially is going to, provide the debt service fund with that influx of revenue, and that room tax now is going to be moved over to the capital fund to help fund, some of those projects. So it's, shifting around revenue sources.
Okay,
Adam, are there any restrictions? I mean, is that a commission and board decision as to where and how much of that fund is used?
So that definitely is, the commission would make a recommendation to the board. And so that would be kind of the conversation. Typically, my understanding is what it's been is, the commission has looked at the budget, they put some proposals together. They then make the recommendation for the budget to go in front of the board. And then your board is the statutory, group that has the decision to determine if they want to approve the budget as is, or, you have a municipal resolution you have to pass for your budget. And Vlad and I were talking about that. You can, specifically pull out items in the budget if you want that to, really be addressed or known that, hey, the board has made this decision that they want to do this or they want to shift that around. That generally would be a recommendation you would want, the board to understand, the commission to understand, to be in support of that, the board to understand and approve it, so that the staff then understands, what they're being directed to do.
I think also, hang on one second, Mike, that it's in our policy. Am I correct with that, Vlad, where we set that policy so we would have to change our policy if we wanted to change where that money goes. I think it's written in our financial policies that we use those funds for debt service.
Which is fine. I just wanted to know if there was any legislative restriction on how you.
I use
used
room
it.
tax?
No, not room tax. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the positive. As Adam explained, TIF 1 is now in a productive mode where we have the opportunity to use incremental funds for other purposes. And my question was really, are there any limitations on what those other purposes are?
TID money?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the
Very
that was the
specific.
question I was asking. I'm sorry. I
Very
thought.
Yeah, sorry. So good question. So the answer to that is if the TIF basically donates money to the debt service fund, whatever that amount is, it has to be used to offset debt service or essentially stays in the debt service fund.
That
So
was the
that's-
question.
Yeah, that's essentially what's going on is because long history ago, the TID didn't have the money to pay the principal and interest payments. It was levied then by the general fund, went into the debt service to pay for it. Now the TID has excess money to pay back. You're using that to essentially cover costs.
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I did reach out to Amber as far as like redirecting revenue stream into different funds. She hasn't replied back. And once she's gonna get back to me, I will request it.
Can I ask Adam one other question? Adam, if this is not the right forum, but it isn't a line item in the budget, we have a bond that we're challenged with around broadband.
Mhm.
At some point in time, maybe it's not here, how does this committee have a discussion with you about how and what the options are to reallocate those dollars if that becomes necessary?
Yeah, really good question. So my understanding, and Denise, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intention is we have Justin coming, is it September or October, to do kind of a formal presentation about kind of debt service. I think I remember seeing those emails. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is something that obviously, we do monitor and look at that because, when you take out debt, there is a finite amount of time that you have to take on those projects before, Standard and Poor's and even the IRS and even the legal side starts to question and go, okay, what are you doing with that? So there is, in the resolutions, there's specific uses that, that information can go towards. Or if you don't go through with that project and you want to reallocate it, we'll then run scenarios. One is, do you just pay it off and then you look at other ones, or is there the ability to, just shift that? It would require, obviously, the commission's recommendation and the board's approval to do something like that. But yeah, I think the intention, Justin, do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I get that, but I gotta believe that municipalities have suppliers go bankrupt or projects go bankrupt. There's issues, right? I'm not
Yes.
suggesting there is one here. I'm just asking.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it would be good for us to be informed
Yep.
as to what the alternatives are if our supplier is not able to deliver. It's not this committee or the village's fault that happened. So the question is, how do we
Right.
protect the taxpayers?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We can certainly, look at scenarios or kind of walk you through what, if this happens, where, what are your forks in the road? You can either go down A or B, or, what are those things? Yes, we can absolutely talk about that.
And then just another quick one, because it relates to this budget. In terms of this debt service presentation that Justin's going to do, I understand the statutory requirements of debt service, and I understand the Baird argument that borrowing more is potentially better and can reduce the tax levy over time. But the concern many village residents have is debt service as an expense in our operating budget has been growing, and it could grow more. And those dollars in your operating budget, when used for debt expense, can't be used for anything else.
Right.
So the only option is raising taxes or, reducing services. So that's a two-pronged discussion. I think I can speak for a couple of members of this committee. I know that we want answers to both. We get the regulatory piece. We get that it can be an advantage in terms of having a better bond rating. But the issue is, what about the expense portion of this? And what happens if we have a year where the valuation goes down, or, there's some significant financial event? Could we put the village budget at risk? And my opinion is it's possible.
Sure. Yeah, no, those are all the things we look at in comparison, and a lot of it just has to go to, this goes back to me being a former city administrator and manager, is the statutory requirements that the state puts on municipalities and towns and villages has forced the majority of them where if they want to do anything, there's really there's two options. One is you're raising taxes, and that only allows you to do it to a certain point where you hit the levy limit. And then if you need to do something, essentially then it goes to a referendum, and that's, the whole question is, do you want to go up? The other option is the only tool they allow you to do is, because general obligation debt is outside of the levy limit, you can take more of that on. Now, again, we're never going to advise whether you should raise taxes or lower it. That's not our role. But that is the one tool that more municipalities go to, is they don't have a choice. So the only way they can do projects or they can fund things is by taking out debt. And so we work with those municipalities to model it where, just like you said, is, well, how do you get to a point where you can, there's always going to be unexpected costs and things that come up. But can you get your budget to be in a position where that debt service levy portion gets to a point where it is relatively flat, and you can game plan it where okay, we have some municipalities where we'll try to get them on a plan where every 2 years they're borrowing the same amount of money. So that then gets into the ability to forecast for that and plan for that debt service. That way, then they can focus on their operations. And there are some, unfortunately, where they do have a roller coaster, where it's, 1 year they'll have, there's a lot of options and conversations to have. Absolutely.
I look forward to getting into that discussion, and I'm sure your expertise will be helpful here, but thank you for listening to that. I want to.
Sure.
Thank you.
Page 30. So Glad, a quick question about I'm sorry, this is the line, sort of the middle of the page, account number 515200200, financial is property assessment. So did you take it way up for this, because we're being assessed? We're going through an assessment, sorry, over the last several years.
Revaluation?
The revaluation,
So
is
what
that why?
happened, you're talking about property assessment services.
Yeah,
Last-
up to 49, because it's
last-
been averaging 29.
Last year, when we already finalized our budget, we received a letter of rate increase and
Yeah.
like resigned the contract. Remember when?
Yeah, I do.
When they came up?
Yep.
So Julie and I, we raised this concern, like, hey, how can we change the final numbers when budget pretty much approved? So what they did, they adjusted the year of 2025, but they moved everything else
27.
to 26, 7, and 8.
Mhm.
And I think I might be able to pull out contract in front of me. So that's what happened.
That's what I assumed, yeah, because I think we're going through a reevaluation in 27, right? And they start
No,
on,
next year, I think.
so
Isn't it
26.
26?
All right, so
26, I
they'll
think,
start there on
Next
the
year.
ground then, okay, all right. And then auditing and consulting, that 30,000 is higher, and is that because we're gonna do more auditing based on the discussions we've been having?
Usually when there's such a change of staff,
Uh-huh,
they do more audit naturally.
okay,
They looking into obviously there could be
CLA,
yes, CLA.
Okay.
Plus there's a piece of consulting involved with audit team that during Tasha's time was not there.
oh,
So the natural cost of things will increase the price plus the consulting fees.
and that's the CLA side of it. So does this also include the Baird side with the new CPA?
Not yet. The Bear side is in finance budget.
All right, okay, okay. Okay, that was that, and then,
I'm okay with that. I understand the next, I get exactly what you're saying. When you have a leadership change, it's very.
I'm fine with it too. I just wondered, I just wanted to make sure I was guessing correctly. Okay, then I'm on page 31. This is gas and electric, so this is Parks. And it looks low to me, but either that or we just had a big spike in 25. And maybe that had to do with, I don't know,
The new building
maybe,
construction?
maybe was that it?
I had invited Eric
Because we got a big building and it would seem that
To
26 would be
to
more.
show up here.
Yeah.
But then I got a text from Julie, let me just read it. She said, Eric had just called her, someone just cut a tree down by the highway and WPS quickly caught it, but Eric was called out there to take it down before it hits a car, so he'll be late. But
By down
plans
by the
on
highway.
coming.
Is it in front of either one of your homes?
It could be. We had a lot of them
Did
down.
either one of you do that? That would be good. So you gotta believe,
So, because that's.
I don't really know
one
why
of the
it's so high for
questions-
25, but yeah, it's gonna be, I mean, those ceilings are pretty high.
Well,
gonna
a
be-
lot of times during the construction too, they are running like those gas heaters to, a
Yeah.
lot of the construction.
Well,
they do
actual
those.
is
walls.
actual. That's
No,
it,
what's
you know,
that?
Actual is actual. We're
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
28 grand, so,
Yeah.
okay. I kind of think he's budgeting too low for 26, but I don't know.
You know, I have some technical issues. I'm not able to connect to my server. Otherwise,
It's okay, just take a look at it.
I would be able to look into.
And it's
account
really
and
Eric,
break
it's
down.
his budget, he budgeted, and I think he may be a little low, and I don't know if WPS or anybody could estimate even for him. Like an estimate on, with a larger building, not sure. And I think that might be, sorry, let me skim fast. There's a lot of contracted services and only Eric knows, or there's not a lot. There's just contracted services in here. It's a line that's been there. It's not, I'm not suggesting that it's a new line or anything. And only he would know. So maybe, talking to him a little bit, I'm not questioning whether we need it or not. I'm really not. Oh, here's the other one, weed control, which is a particular bugaboo of mine and probably Denise's. So far we spent 14,500. This looks, I'm sorry, I'm on page 42. This is refuse and garbage collection. Sorry, this is under public works. Sorry about that. So weed and nuisance control, and he took the budget down to like $7,000.
Put the two together, the line right below
Oh,
it.
15,500. Okay,
And if you look at the two, I think,
that's why.
yeah,
So it's
he
15,500
separated
on-
it
okay.
differently.
It's 15,500 on 16,500. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, because I'm like, we need more. Okay. And okay, culture and recreation. Sorry, I'm on page 48. Again, this is parks, culture, recreation, and education. On page 48, the fourth line down, grounds maintenance. He took down a lot, but, and it looks like he didn't spend a lot, and I'm wondering if those are combined. I'm not sure, because he hasn't spent much for repairs and maintenance or grounds and maintenance compared to the prior years. So maybe it's in a different category. I don't know.
Well, but his 26 budget is about, it's good 10, more than 10% over his 24 budget.
But look at
After
the,
his 24 actual,
right, and
his
then,
25
but look
budget
at the grounds maintenance, it's
actual
half.
spending, yeah.
So if you add those together, they're kind of the same. So one is repairs and maintenance, that's, for equipment. The other is grounds maintenance, so only he would know that.
So what he's saying in his note that was presented in parks,
Yeah, then I
recent
forget.
funds were placed in the wrong code
Oh,
it's
I remember that, kind of.
or 362.
362, okay,
So he subtracted 9,250 reason funds were placed in the wrong code.
okay,
$5,000 will be sufficient to cover the year expenditure.
for
Tree
repairs and
irrigation,
maintenance, okay,
others, flowers.
okay. Well, I know we got an estimate from Joy on the flowers. So we know where that was. All right. It just looked a little wacky, that's all, I think that's all I have. It looks like Julie's double checking some of the, like IT support, office supplies and all that stuff, right? We're still getting confirmation, because those look like placeholders. I'm on page 50. And those are all placeholders for admin stuff like printing, and copying, office supplies, IT support, things like that.
So what I did, I pretty much carried numbers over from last year.
Yeah,
And I'm
okay.
asking Julie like,
Yeah.
just
make sure this
make
looks,
sure that's okay.
yeah, based on year to date, or, because I realize we probably don't have all the invoices in. Okay, those were my questions, thank you.
Just one other comment. I think you already know this, Denise, but I think the Friends of the Ice Rink are communicating that they're making great progress on their fundraising project, and they tried to blow in a lot of our ears that they want to make sure they're gonna want their match sooner rather than later. I'll
It's
just
in the
leave it at
SIP.
that.
I read Page 60, yeah, they're happy, they've gotten their,
Well, it sounds like they're making tremendous progress.
yeah, which is great.
I mean, we knew that they would. I
Yeah.
think we always had faith
Yeah,
in
there was,
their ability.
yeah, Denise and I did, we always did,
That's awesome.
so it is awesome. Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, and I'd hope maybe they might get coolers for this, or chillers for this year, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But it's just too late. Okay, so.
So anything else in general? Right, I'm going to say that this committee surprised me.
Of the
Because,
SIP?
no, because we're not even dealing with the SIP today. I didn't even put it on the agenda. It's just the budget. On page 15, what Vlad and Adam had put together on the mill rate worksheet. So with the reduction of 20 cents per $1,000 of valuation, I was surprised that this committee thought that that was acceptable.
Okay,
And so you're telling me that
Well, I didn't look specifically at the mill rate. What I saw is that we plugged the budget at 2.4, which is over $200,000 less than what the budget was last year. And we've kind of plugged the TID with the information that we have right now. And that's how this sheet was calculated. So I'm not sure what you're looking for. I'm not sure if this is a quiz or what, but
no, I'm just saying, I was surprised because we had a 10.8% increase
Yeah.
last year. Basically, I think last year, if your house is valued at $500,000, I think last year the average it said in Sister Bay was 450,000.
Yeah.
Maybe this year it's 500,000. With this particular budget, everything else staying the same. If they haven't, remodeled, put in an addition, whatever, been reassessed for any other purpose, they would save $100 off their taxes.
yeah, I think it's fantastic.
You want them to save more.
That's what I'm saying. You people surprised me. Because after
After
All-
2 years of increases.
all the grief, this committee thinks that's okay. I don't think that's okay.
You want.
Well, I think the issue is that what happens going forward. If we reduce property taxes $100 per home approximately this year, and we don't take the same discipline into next year and it goes the other way, that's a problem. If we take this same discipline into next year and we can make continuous improvement with the taxpayers, I think they would be pleased with the work that we're doing. Now,
Well,
Okay.
okay, so
Well-
that $100 would take, at least in ours, our taxes are around $7,000. So that $100 would be, my taxes would have gone down 1.5%. And my taxes went up 15% last year. So let's play devil's advocate, or what Denise is talking about, which is my taxes shouldn't have gone up 10%. Now you're saving me 1.5%. But it's still on a base, which was my argument last year, on a base that's up 10.
the other thing is, we already agreed in the last meeting to your target of 2.4 million. Well, 2.4 is the controllable piece, really,
Right,
of the budget. So once we agree to that, the question is,
that-
how do
that-
we manage the?
right. That was a starting point. That was a starting point. I did my own TID in, TID outs, my own mill rate worksheet with a variety of different numbers. And so I guess that's why I'm surprised.
Well, we told people,
Because I will, for all the grief and abuse that some of us took throughout that process last year, will the public feel that we did
Because of
enough?
this, yeah.
And in 2026,
we are having a revamp.
Another, yeah, that's gonna be.
So
Right.
we could leave the levy the same next year, but if your property's now worth $100,000 more, you're gonna pay more.
Well, look, if you
So-
wanna target a budget of $2 billion, okay, let's go work on
No,
it.
we can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I get your point. I would like it to be a lot lower, but I think what you did is pragmatic. I think the real question will be, what do we do after this? Right? What do we do after this? And I'm still a little nervous about the TIDs and that number not coming in where we'd like, and maybe, I hope we can hold this to where we're at right now.
Oh.
It seems like we can.
Hey, Eric. How are you? Everything under control?
Yeah, we had someone get a little frisky with a chainsaw right next to the highway, so they go Salem.
Where?
Luckily, you and I are.
Right by Coach Lake.
By Coach Lake?
Yeah, one of the J1s decided to cut down a dead ash tree and then.
I know which tree that is.
Yeah,
Been dead a long time.
been there a long
Today?
time.
Today, he decided,
Today he decided.
So, I'm sorry, Eric, but I think we should keep moving. I want to be respectful, Denise. And I think it's good to keep moving. Is there something else you want to cover?
so, but Denise, I'm looking at something, hold on a second. Crap, I'm in the GIS, I hate this one. Wait, hold on 1 second, here we go, all right. Here we go. Okay. Does a guest sign in on the GIS now?
Well, what's your question, Louise?
Nothing, I want to take a look at, it's not a question, it's more, I mean, if you backed into it,
That's how I came up with a variety of numbers.
right, so if we backed into it, and in my case, or in your case, or any of our cases, I mean, and took it back to last year's, basically, last year's number for everybody. I mean, we're in trouble, right, in terms of how much the village has to spend and relative to what we can.
So I believe it is my job as finance chair to present all options to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
So we could reduce, I would like to reduce the budget from 3.19 to 3.1. Okay, and I would, and about 75,000, or no, 150,000 of that is taking the engineering for the village hall that was slated for 26 and moving it to 27. And then tweaking some things within Eric's budget, reducing some things, but also giving him a different kind of general category and a contingency fund that Parks had talked about. Okay. So, but there is a caveat to reducing even lower numbers than the 3.19 that we have. And that can cause.
Denise, can you tell me I'm looking at page 19, which is the 26th annual budget proposal. Where are you getting the 3.1 from?
Page 10.
Page 10?
Mhm.
A different page.
And this is what, those of you who were here in the past, I think when CLA met with us and Adam and Justin, and I think CLA, probably was Amber who was talking about this, that what what a municipality should do is try to slowly increase their levy, you know, and let it be consistent, and you don't want the roller coaster, okay?
Mhm.
We had unintended consequences last year that we're trying to address.
Mhm.
I think this was a good start. I'm pleased with it. I think there could be some additional fine tuning. But the domino effect is that we cannot raise our levy, the 3.19,
Mhm.
okay, other than net new construction, okay?
Mhm.
Which even if you had, let's say 10 million, a couple of $1 million, let's say a new building goes up somewhere, commercial building, you would only get about $40,000. So net new construction is not, it's not something that you can count on, and it's not really big numbers, okay? But what you can do is legally put more debt on the tax roll. Now, we have been keeping it at about 790,000. I think Justin had talked about that we can go up to 850 or whatever, but those are the only two options when you are pulling back on the levy, which we've already done, okay? So it's tricky, but I also think that there has to be a little bit more trimming for the people that sat here.
Mhm. Well, I'm embarrassed to say I don't disagree with you, because I should have brought it up and said, can we do better? So I'll be honest.
And with the engineering for the administrative building, does that need to happen next year? I mean, when does the,
Village Hall, you
excuse
mean?
me, sorry, Village Hall.
It does not.
No, it doesn't.
It does not. And I specifically did not include the CIP in today's meeting so that we could focus on this presentation, on the proposed mill rate, on the proposed levy, on the numbers, because this will have some impact on the CIP, and then we will make adjustments and bring that
Yeah, I
to
get
our
that.
next meeting.
I
The CIP is pretty easy.
So help me, what are you asking us?
I am asking that, that we move the Village Hall engineering $150,000 to 27. That, I sit down with Eric and, tweak some of his numbers. And that we get to around a 3.1 apportioned levy.
So you want to reduce the apportioned levy by $90,000.
Yes.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay.
I'm not either.
And you understand the implications of that moving forward.
I don't understand the implications on the 27 or 28 or 20.
So I can probably add to that and explain kind of what that means. So right now, with you got about, when we did this, you had 2.4 million essentially is what you're levying for general fund operations. In that levy, you are one of the few communities that still exists that can actually levy for capital projects. So what happens now is when you reduce the levy, to kind of Denise's point, you only have two mechanisms that allow you to go back up. And that's either net new construction, which Denise beautifully explained, or it's essentially debt. So what happens now is
or referendum, right?
Or that was going to be my next one. So right now what happens is you've got, roughly about, I think $500,000 or $600,000 in that, out of that 2.4 that's being transferred to capital projects. If your levy, you can't increase your levy, then essentially out of that 2.4 now, if that's your base, you gotta do reductions. So realistically, that's probably going to be, if your operations go up, your capital project transfer goes down. And so that leads to, what does that mean in the future? Well, in the future, that means if you do need to do projects and you no longer have that levy transfer coming in, then the only option, you just hit it, is either you're adding more debt or you're going to a referendum to ask your constituents to basically pay for that. And that's the whole political, operational conversation there.
Adam, what in a stable community, my understanding, you tell me if I'm wrong, is typically the annual property tax increase is between half and roughly the rate of inflation. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll tell you, in the 3 municipalities I was an administrator in, it was different in all of them. So some of them would focus on, just as you alluded to, Mike, is whatever the CPI is, we're going to allow a 3% inflationary increase in taxes, or they would go with a percentage. Some of them would focus only on the levy, and they would say, okay, what is our, they would ask for, can you calculate for us what we could increase the levy to? And then they would play around with that. Other municipalities, it would be, what is a acceptable dollar increase? Is it 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever? So it varies from, every municipality has a different way of creating the sausage. I guess I'll put it that way.
Do you know, because there is a publication from out of Madison, I have a copy of it from 2 years ago. Do you know what last year's, I'm told they were up, but do you know what last year's average city and village tax bill increases were? The average?
I have to look at that and get back to you. That'd be a good question.
And the Wisconsin Institute of Policy Research publishes a summary out of, there's what, a couple hundred of them, 700 maybe. If I have a copy, I'll send you the last one.
Yeah, because I know the Wisconsin Public Policy Forum is the other one that does some of
That's
that.
what I meant to say.
research.
I misspoke.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, that's the one you're talking about. Yeah, that's who we have a good relationship with them, so I could look at their data tool and see if I can.
They list every taxing authority, but it's got to be
They do.
incorporated, so it was only cities and villages.
All right, so the next step, if we, Andy, do you have a point of view on what Denise is suggesting?
I'm in favor of pushing on the engineering costs, and because, the feedback I get from community, I get a lot of feedback around engineering costs in general for projects, so I think that would, not only help the numbers, but it would help from a perception standpoint as well too. So,
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not in favor of the Village Hall project. I have said that
We're all in favor of it.
at board meetings, but I think we've been talking about doing something, seriously talking about doing something with the Village Hall for 4 years.
At least
Maybe 5.
a long.
Okay, but we've been talking about a parks maintenance building and an admin building for 20. So we'll get to the Village Hall. It's, we have it in our CIP. It just getting a little pushed. And I think we need to take care of what's on our plate now and move forward responsibly.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with this.
We don't need a motion, right? We do it.
Do you give me the authority to just work with Eric separately on some of the numbers that I think that we need to tweak within his budget?
Parks, yeah, because when I looked at his budget.
Some are just questions, some
Well,
I
yeah,
don't have
these are round,
answers
this is
to.
round 3. The one thing with, and I think Eric does a really, really good job, but Eric, there's when you're managing a budget, there's people that like consider it, and this is not, again, it's gonna sound like it's not, but that really want to come in under budget, that's always, and I was always taught that, more than 5% under is just as bad as 5% over, like you're not managing it. And I think that that's something that you just learn over. It depends on who your boss is, depends on like what, so maybe taking a harder look at, and he's very capable. I'm not pleased. He's very, very good. very good. So, you know, looking at that, so maybe but I do think on the utility side, like power and stuff like that for that new building. If that's gonna go up, something else has gotta come down.
The only safety tip I would give to the committee is that as we increase the SIP budget and invest in capital infrastructure, we have to be doing one of two things, either requiring productivity with the capital project, where something's gonna go down in terms of the operating expense, or we're gonna have to manage the CIP so that we can have some increase in the operating budget to afford the incremental expenses that come with this infrastructure.
Well, what I had tried to do back before you were on the committee, when it was Nate, Louise, and myself, I think it was the February meeting, is even out the capital improvement plan over the next 5 years.
Right.
There was an increase for 26, another increase in 27, then it dropped way down in 28, and then kind of started creeping back up. And I think my goal was to try to keep it somewhere around $1 million every year, give or take, you know. And I think I haven't, after running some numbers when I met with Wad a couple of weeks ago and made some changes with him, now making this village hall change, some other things will still have to be tweaked. So that has been my goal the entire time on how to manage that. So it's consistent.
So Adam, putting your consulting hat on, when you're doing your consulting on borrowing and bonding, do you have analysis or tools that help guide municipalities on, you know, what the impact those investments can have on operating expenses?
We certainly, yeah. I mean, the scenario that, you know, I know Justin in his presentations that he always does is it shows whatever the projects is that you're trying to do, you know, what is the impact then on the debt service side? And if there's an increase, then we can certainly show, you know, the operational side as well. So we do have that. We're seeing more and more municipalities are going to what we have as a financial management plan. And that probably, Mike, has some tools in there that specifically we model out property tax impacts. And whether that's, you know, you're trying to add new staff or you're trying to essentially take on the projects, it shows that impact of, okay, here's what happens to the debt and the overall mill rate perspective. Here's your general fund and what that is, and allows you to play around to see, like, just like you said, is, okay, if we're going to take on a project that's going to go over the $1 million, that means then that the other operational levy areas need to decrease by this. And so we show that.
I'm kind of going the other way, because recently there's been white papers written about communities who have overcapitalized to the extent that their operating expenses got out of control and it put them in a bad spot. And it was because it is very difficult for staff to forecast incremental operating expenses to infrastructure. You know, if you've got a building that's got 4 times the size of an old building, everything from the cost of heating and cooling to maintenance of the facility, to the stuff. I mean, there's got to be some modeling somebody does to help us make sure that we're doing a good job of estimating that. So when a capital project comes to this committee or to the board for approval, we can say, hey, look, we want to approve $1 million capital project based on this broadband probably would have very little incremental cost, right? Because we're paying somebody else to do a job. But when you're building a building or putting some infrastructure that requires maintenance in, there should be a model that gives you an idea of anticipating the operating costs to support that and the staff.
Yeah.
So that we properly estimate it. That's the thing I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and so we have that it's a financial management plan that we've kind of put together that does map out specifically the general fund side and looks at just what you alluded to, Mike, is where, okay, if you know, there's going to be a new parks building, we then will model in not only the debt that's associated with that, but then can model in the operational estimated costs. So if you want to see, if you think that it's going to be a 2 to 3% increase in, those particular departments' budgets, we can model that into that kind of analysis and show you then what that does to the overall tax rate and kind of mill rate. And then you can kind of plan and see, okay, is that realistic? Is it not? That's kind of what all that modeling does.
I think that type of work could be really helpful, could simplify your life, Vlad, so that every time a capital project's approved, we're looking at the same template. Okay, this is how much capital is involved. Here's the debt expense. Here's the operating expense in the categories based on the type of project that it is. I mean, down the road, that's probably something good for us to look at or at least talk about. Thank you.
Sure.
Where did we put Wiltsey, the infrastructure for that? Right now.
I think it's just in the CIP, it's not.
I know, I'm looking for it, I can't find it. I don't know where it's in. I know we moved it out, but I wonder. I know, but I didn't know it, so it's not in 26, it must have gone out in 27. Just not seeing it. I see.
Oh, I thought we pulled it.
We pull it?
Did we pull it
It's not
in
here.
February because we didn't know?
Yeah,
We have the page in there, but not
Yeah.
a dollar amount allocated
yeah,
to it,
yeah.
I think.
Yes. Well, Housing Committee met again. We have somebody else coming back again to talk to us about, okay, what is the best model? What do we need to do here? So we can finally, make a decision and decide. We can make a decision on best possible use. Best possible model to use for housing. Yeah, it's not here. Okay. All right, I just want to be sure. That's all. I'm sorry, I didn't bring my SIP. No problem with me. Okay. Okay. So we meet again in,
Can we, oh no, shoot, Andy just left.
I can text him.
All right, so we are going to have Parks is September 8th, right?
Mhm.
And then board is the 16th. I was trying not to have finance and board in the same week because those are two big packets to try to read over a weekend.
Yeah.
What about Monday, the 29th?
I can make that. It's actually the best day of the month for me.
September?
Oh, shoot, not September.
I was gonna say that's late.
No.
August,
Um,
I can do
the August 25th.
Okay.
next Monday.
Yep, that works for me.
Yeah.
Wait, oh, maybe I was looking,
It's a week from Monday.
What, today's the 15th. Yeah, you're right. It's a week from Monday. August 25th. I can do that too. We'd eventually get to a day I can't go.
next week is a payroll week, so that's not good for you.
I mean,
No, September, okay,
8th is parks, like
September
we said.
1st, oh, that's Labor Day.
First is, that's why we're not doing parks.
Yeah,
Parks is the 8th.
Well, Parks is, the 8th is Labor Day, right? No, Labor Day is the 1st.
Right, that's why we moved parks to the 8th.
I don't know if I can make Tuesday the 9th.
I cannot do the 9th, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so you don't,
I can't, that week
no,
is,
that's okay.
I'm not here.
even though the next week is payroll week, it depends what you plan on having on the agenda. So what I'm saying,
CIP,
CAP, then we can make it happen.
The week of the first or
Um,
next week?
or the 25th,
The benefit,
The 25th, sorry.
because
the week
I
after
just,
next.
I just need to sit down with you, make those couple of changes.
if it's CAP only, yes, we can make it happen.
I'm available on the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th.
I can do the 25th, 26th. I have a eye doctor appointment in the morning that'll only take me hopefully till like noon.
After the 26th, I start working 7 days a week, so I know I can make the 25th.
All right, so the
I can do
25th,
the
at
25th.
what time?
And 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that a little bit better?
Anytime, yeah, it's fine.
The 25th, so that's 8:25 at 3 p.m. It's good, the focus is gonna be on CIP.
Right, which actually shouldn't
No, it
Right.
shouldn't
take
long.
very long at all. Hopefully it'd be under an hour.
Yeah.
So then if we have a good grip on,
And can we, if there's any update on the data for the TIDs, can we at least touch base on it?
sure. So an agenda item, Vlad, we might want to have CIP and just general discussion on 2026 budget, which would encompass
That's fine.
anything that anybody wants to talk about or that we would have to share. Okay,
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
at
So-
12:31 to adjourn, motion by Hausen, second by Raskowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everybody. I hope you
Are we
feel
off?
better.
Glad, are we off? Are we off? The
For now, yes.
Recording, I
Are we-
think he's
Oh,
asking.
no, I'm stopping right now, just a second.
No, I hope you feel better soon.
I'm better already.
Oh, well, good.
The aspirin finally